Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before having lunch, I'd like to talk to you on the truth behind those political instabilities happening on the South Korean political field. Actually, South Koreans have been worried by the political instability caused by military martial law happened about 6 days ago. But all the mass media, including broadcasting stations and the newspapers, they are not reporting or writing all the fact, truth. Rather, it seems to me that they are making some hasty conclusions, without judicial processes and reviewing processes upon those errors and responsibilities made by the president. So one article which was written by Alan Kim, who is a senior fellow of the Korea Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. He wrote an article a few days ago, 4th December, by the form of commentary, and the title was Yoon Suk-yeol's Presidency in Jeopardy, something like that. Also, she analyzed this kind of political instabilities rather from a journalistic view, not 100% based on truth, but analysis and personal opinions. According to her, this article saying that President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law plunged South Korea into an unprecedented political crisis. And he averted a constitutional crisis by lifting the martial law decree just 6 hours after it took effect. But the political fallout was immediate as 6 opposition parties submitted an impeachment motion against him today. It was written last Saturday, I think, because the impeachment process was going on last Saturday. So she also argues that Yoon's political survival appears to hinge largely on the support of his own People's Power Party, ruling party. For the impeachment to pass, it requires a 2/3 majority in the 300-member National Assembly, meaning that at least 8 out of 108 lawmakers from the ruling People's Power Party would need to support it. Should the motion succeed, the Constitutional Court would then decide whether Yoon's impeachment is valid. It remains unclear whether the PPP will come around to defend Yoon and prevent the impeachment of another conservative president. So they are impeaching him, probably. This is my opinion, not Alan Kim's opinion. They're impeaching me in a too much haste in motion. They are saying that President Yoon Suk-yeol has committed a treason, something like that, but which is not legally proven, or which is in a very vague interpretation of the constitutional spirit. According to the Article 87 of the Criminal Act regarding crimes of rebellion or treason, it refers to a crime of rioting for the purpose of disordering the country or making the constitution very unstable. The crime of rebellion, like the crime of they are serious crimes, it is a crime related to the existence of the state. But while the crime of making state unstable jeopardize the existence of the state from the outside, also this crime attacks the basic order within the state, something like that. So according to the composition requirement, the purpose is a subjective requirement for the crime of civil war, and it should contain the content of the national territory or national constitution, Article 91 of the Criminal Act. So also damaging the national territory concept. It is a exercise of illegal power, excluding the exercise of sovereignty of all or part of the territory of the Republic of Korea. So actually applying this kind of crimes to the president is too much premature and very illogical. Regarding state constitutional controversy, extinguishing the function of the constitution or the law without procedures prescribed by the constitution or the law, or making it impossible to overthrow a state agency established by the constitution, or exercise its power by coercion, something like that. Also, the concept of riot, it is a combination of multiple groups or people to commit violence, and it should be large enough to destroy the well-being and order of at least one province, something like that. So all the mass media are reporting that just on the condition that President Yoon Suk-yeol has committed a crime of rebellion, something like that. But this is not true. And the very precise interpretation of the clause of article of the Criminal Act, and also all the legal articles relevant to that, it is not right as of now. Just deciding to make a very hasty conclusion that President Yoon Suk-yeol committed such kind of crime. Also, according to the Article 77 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, President has a power according to the Article 77 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. It says that the President may declare martial law as prescribed by law when it is necessary to respond to military needs or maintain public well-being as a force in war, incident, or a similar national emergency. Martial law shall be governed by emergency martial law and security martial law. When emergency martial law is declared, special measures may be taken regarding the warrant system, freedom of press, publication, assembly, association, and authority of the government or court as prescribed by law. Also, when the martial law is declared, the President shall notify the National Assembly without delay. Also, when the National Assembly requests the lifting of the martial law with the approval of a majority of the registered members in the National Assembly, the President shall lift it. Well, according to this Article 77 of the Constitution, President followed all the procedures, and also he, at the request of the opposition parties, after passing, requiring the lifting the martial law in the National Assembly, he lifted it legally. So there is no reason that all the mass media and some leftist forces are emphasizing that President Yoon Suk-yeol committed a treason or a crime of rebellion, something like that. It is in such hasty mood to conclude this kind of very important national task, causing political instability. coming back to Ellen Kim's commentary, she said that even if they wish to support him, the People's Power Party faces a dilemma how to justify Yoon's invocation of martial law intended for wartime or similar national emergencies to address what he called unscrupulous acts of legislative and budgetary manipulation that are paralyzing the functions of the state. Opposition parties have already condemned Yoon's action as unconstitutional and unlawful. This question will heavily weigh on People's Power Party lawmakers as the impeachment bill comes to a vote in the next 2 days, something like that. It was written before the last Saturday's impeachment proceeding happened, something like that. So Ellen Kim also analyzed that Yoon's declaration of martial law has reignited deep-sealed fears among South Koreans of a return to a military dictatorship. This is a significant setback for Yoon himself, putting his presidency at serious risk, tarnishing his reputation as a chairman of freedom and democracy, and undermining his effort to position South Korea as a leader within the global democratic alliance. But President Yoon Suk-yeol just intended, he explained later that his main purpose was just, to gain all the evidences at the Central Election Commission, which is, doubted by many South Korean intellectuals and many, those experts, in voting machine, processing IT technologies, that he just, tried to collect evidences during the, martial law period of 6 hours, not attempting to paralyze National Assembly. He explained that he is seriously worried about those, leftist forces, pro-Chinese, pro-North Korean forces, all the manipulations, to damage South Korean democracy and creating all the diplomatic senses, tilting toward, Chinese Communist Party and North Korea. So he is, mentioning that all the anti-South Korean forces, anti-South Korean constitutional forces are gaining upper hand, even damaging South Korean democracies. So based on this kind of, patriotic awareness, and as the president of South Korea, to keep the South Korean democratic system stable, he just, implemented a very very small measure military martial law just for 6 hours, following all the procedures, only to collect, those, Central Election Commission's, illegal voting data proposed by many civic activists and those, experts in the voting machine procedure, the IT technology, problems there. We don't know how many evidences are collected through that kind of, about 30 to 4 hours, time to collect these kind of, evidences, to prove that election fraud, was, done in a very large scale. In a long, we have to wait. We should not in a haste mood, especially regarding the interpretation of the president. Procedures of South Korean legal system. under the constitutional spirit, I think. South Koreans have experienced very painful history of former President Park Geun-hye's being impeached by such kind of a very, very small crime. Of her from her presidency and caused a lot of national, instabilities, and we lost a lot of national, benefit, out of that kind of political turmoil and instabilities at the time. So, for me, who have gone through that kind of processes, protesting against that kind of move at the time, this kind of experience is, really very, very, painful memory to think that, again, this kind of a very unhappy constitutional history is happening. Making President Yoon Suk-yeol's a small mistake, as if he caused a crime of treason, something like that. Will have far-reaching consequences, particularly during a time of heightened uncertainty. This political instability comes amid escalating tensions with North Korea and its growing strategic alliance with Russia, as well as a leadership transition in the United States. According to her, with the recent political leadership change in Japan and the re-election of Donald Trump in the United States, Yoon was uniquely in a position to uphold the Camp David spirit. But by jeopardizing his presidency, Yoon has introduced uncertainty into the future of a trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the United States, and Japan. Even if an interim president steps in following Yoon's impeachment, a few countries will seriously engage South Korea until a new government is in its place. This lost time will come at a steep cost to South Korea, like that. Ellen Kim analyzes, and she is thinking that personally, as if Yoon Suk-yeol has certainly committed a crime, as all the mass media and leftist forces are emphasizing. But I don't agree with her views that Yoon Suk-yeol has committed such serious crime enough to be removed from his presidency, as I explained. Ellen Kim concluded by saying that South Korea has long been regarded as a shining example of democracy in Asia, and the peaceful resolution of yesterday's crisis showed once again the maturity and the resilience of its democratic institutions. However, the looming prospect of another presidential impeachment highlight a troubling lack of political leadership and bipartisanship, as well as a deep political polarization entrenched within South Korea's democracy. She concluded that a confluence of these elements poses a significant risk to the country's future stability and governance. Of course, we are working through political instability as of now, and people are too much worried about the unstable economic situation, and those middle and low class members are suffering from the all the economic dysfunctions and the problems of the living cost as of now. In addition to these kind of problems, political instability will add more burdens to those Koreans living in such a hard way. What I'd like to say, after reading Ellen Kim's article and also analyzing my own views on this, political instability incident in South Korea, I would say that the hasty conclusion and only listening to the leftist forces, pro-Chinese, pro-North Korean forces, interpretation of this martial law incident does not help and does not correctly analyze the true problems of our society and the true fact of this martial law. President Yoon Suk-yeol tried to convey through this kind of very emergent measures to the people and to the international society. I think, as President Yoon Suk-yeol has emphasized in his martial law declaration context there, South Korea is in a very politically unstable situation. Even though we have a constitutional spirit and the constitutional procedures, which all the political parties and the political factions should follow, actually, assembly dictatorship and the paralyzing the national state affairs by the National Assembly, especially opposition parties, coalitions, even sometimes not allocating budget to the president activities, also decreasing national defense budget, also removing very, very necessary national budget, in the next year's, budget, committee deals, between ruling and the opposition parties. So paralyzing President Yoon Suk-yeol's state plans and his normal political activities as president. So President Yoon Suk-yeol judged that, well, South Korea is in a crisis of, being unstabilized by those leftist forces, probably pro-Chinese, pro-North Korean groups, which does not respect the constitutional spirit of South Korea, and also which does not respect the successful history of South Korean economic development and democracy. Rather, these groups are politically more authoritarian and socialist-oriented ones, showing anti-American stances, moving toward more, authoritarian and dictatorial trends in the international society. One of the context when the opposition parties, mentioned as the reasons why they should impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol, they said that the current Yoon Suk-yeol government, damaged the diplomatic relations toward Russia and the North Korea and China, something like that, damaging national interest of South Korea. Does it make sense? South Korea's national interest is strongly based on the first condition, United States, Japan, South Korean, trilateral alliances. Based on this, we could, adjust small diplomatic and economic issues, with those, communist countries and with neighboring countries, which is authoritarian, not democratic, to create maximum national interest. But who jeopardized those diplomatic relations, with Chinese, Russian, or North Korean government? As a divided nation, we should put priorities, in terms of a diplomatic agenda. First, to democratic, liberal, constitutional countries. Then, as a second tier, we should, embrace if it's possible, those market of socialist and authoritarian countries to create wealth to make our country economically rich and abundant. But constitutionally, our constitution orders that liberal democratic order should be all the conditions to manage state affairs in terms of political realms, probably in other realms of social and economic affairs. So conclusively, I think that this kind of political instability is very unhappy, and it should not be concluded in such a haste mood as President Park Geun-hye was impeached without all the evidences necessary enough to impeach her. So when I heard that Justice Ministry slaps first travel ban on President yesterday, I think this is too premature and is really not a very rational approach to analyze and to judge all these political instabilities with all the legal and constitutional devices and spirit. So we should give more time, and the power of a president is given by the people's voting, not by one person's decisions or some political factions, hasty conclusions that he committed a treason, something like that. This is not right, If we are going to impeach one president, under the Constitution, probably it will require at least 6 months, 1 year. If there are any crimes, to prove it, to investigate it, enough time. But what a hasty approach all these opposition leftist forces are doing, to create political instabilities in this country. Nonsense, really. This is not right. And nobody can take presidential power as of now from Yoon Suk-yeol unless impeachment process is finished, or Yoon Suk-yeol himself declares that he will step down. But many mass media and all those leftist activists and those irresponsible journalists are writing and saying and emphasizing that he is a criminal and his duties must be stopped as of now. Nonsense, This should not happen. This should not happen for the success of South Korean democracy. We have experienced former President Park Geun-hye's cases, waste of all the national energies at that time. Who apologized? Anybody else took responsibilities for committing such kind of historical crimes against the people and this country, South Korea? Nobody. They are repeating that kind of historical mistake again. All the mass media, some officials in a position to interpret and to analyze with more evidences and with more reasonable, interpretation of articles and regulations, according to our constitution. So I'm saying that this kind of happenings now going on in South Korea is abnormal, not normal, and we should, be very calm, and we should be more objective in analyzing and looking into the nature of President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration, and after political instabilities We should be more, rational, and we should be more matured in analyzing and concluding what are the problems and who is responsible if there are any crimes, something like that. Okay? I want to convey this kind of, my idea to all the international society, especially those, American policymakers, who are responsible for the South Korean questions and the Korean Peninsula questions. We should look at the truth and the nature of this political incident at this time, and we should, solve this kind of problems with more time and rational approaches. This is my comment. Thank you very much. Have a nice lunch.